If you guys are trying to take your training to the next level and you want to increase your speed, your power, your conditioning, then you got to check out Phil Daru's 8-week heavy hitter boxing program. I'm telling you guys right now, it's no joke.
Hi, it's Minnie. You're watching Don't Share Boxing Nation.
Dante's Boxing Nation, what's going on, guys? Man, oh man, this is a sad week for ESPN, guys. Sad week. And when I say ESPN, I'm really talking about Joe Tessitore, because Joe Tessitore is usually the one saying that Lomachenko is pound for pound the best fighter in the world. Now, he's not the only one. Tim Bradley had also agreed at one point that Lomachenko was pound for pound the best fighter in the world. But the difference is when Joe Tessitore calls the fight, you can clearly see a conflict of interest where Joe Tessitore is showing way too much bias towards Lomachenko, interfering with his ability to do a blow-by-blow announcing assignment. I mean, if you go back and you look at the old school blow-by-blow commentators, you could never tell who they're rooting for because all they're doing is calling the fight. But if you listen to the commentary in this fight, for the most part, especially in the first half, before Tim Bradley checked Joe Tessitore, Joe almost wouldn't even mention whenever Teo landed a punch. He certainly wouldn't get excited about it. He would start talking about other things while Teofimo was on the attack. And it was Tim Bradley and Andre Ward that were really doing Joe Tessitore's job because they had to point out the effective punches that Teofimo was landing. Matter of fact, to give you a perfect example, here's a clip of Joe Tessitore calling out some punches that Lomachenko threw, but not saying anything about the punch that Teo landed. And Tim Bradley had to ask Joe Tessitore, did you see the hook that Teo just landed? Let me just go ahead and play the clip.
Once again, trying to go to the body with a long-range right hand. Southpaw jab being doubled and tripled up. Range finding by Lomo. Now he's trying to get to the inside with a short left hand.
That's where he's got to live, right there. Did you see the hook from Lopez, though?
Well, that hook can be dangerous against the southpaw because it's sitting right on top of them.
So that right there was just one of many examples throughout the fight where clearly Joe Tessitore did not hide the fact that he was rooting for Lomachenko while calling the fight. See, what you guys have to understand is this was bigger than just Loma versus Teofimo Lopez. The way ESPN and Joe Tessitore seeing this was this would make them look like fools. The fact that they've been so biased towards Lomachenko, telling the public that he's pound for pound the best fighter in the world no matter what he does. Even after he struggled against Luke Campbell, they still said that he was pound for pound the best fighter in the world. Imagine what they would have said if Terrence Crawford would have struggled against a Luke Campbell. And then after the fight, Terrence Crawford would have said, man, that was the most difficult fight of my career. Can you imagine what they would say about Terrence then? But once again, we know how good that hope insurance is, don't we, when it comes to Lomachenko. So yeah, this wasn't so much about Loma versus Teo. This was about pound for pound best fighter in the world status and losing it. Let's not forget it was ESPN that tried to change Loma's record to an undefeated record. So moving on. Anyway, let's get to the subject at hand. So while Joe Tessitore was getting more and more frustrated watching Lomachenko get dominated by Teofimo, I'm going to play the clip for you guys. Andre Ward, he said something that made a lot of sense. And the way Joe Tessitore responded was by dissing Floyd Mayweather. Let me first play the clip before I unpack everything that was said.
You know, Joe, this is why you don't see a lot of unifications in the sport, or at least as many as we should, and a lot of undisputed championships, because it's hard. It's not easy. You're risking everything. You could get knocked out. You could get beat. You might get embarrassed. And oftentimes, guys don't want to risk all that.
But give credit for these two, because during the Floyd Mayweather era, when it was about managing the business of boxing, this is about the boxing of boxing. Well done by both men for taking this fight.
Now, guys, I don't know what's more shocking. The fact that Joe Tessitore is so comfortable to come off and say something so racist on air, or the fact that Andre Ward didn't check Joe Tessitore with actual facts. That was a great opportunity for Andre Ward to educate Joe Tessitore, make him look stupid on live TV. Because Joe knows right now, he can say the most misleading things. He can lie all he wants on air and he knows no one's gonna check him. So that means he's gonna keep saying it. But all it takes is for someone to check him on air just one time, and I can guarantee you he will never say that again, because he will always fear that if he does speak out of pocket, someone may end up checking his ass again. And he's not gonna wanna get embarrassed again. And the reason why I only mention Andre Ward, because if anybody is going to stand up and say something like that, it's gonna be Andre Ward. It wouldn't be Tim Bradley. We already know that. But when Joe said all of this stuff, he left himself wide open for counters, factual counters. Andre Ward could have easily said to Joe in a respectful way, "Joe, you don't remember Floyd Mayweather fighting Diego Corrales, Genaro Hernandez, Angel Manfredi at the age of 23? You don't remember Floyd Mayweather fighting Jose Luis Castillo, Philip Endo, Jesus Chavez? And that's just to name a few. I mean, where have you been, Joe? You haven't been watching boxing?" But it's not even just the young pretty boy Floyd and what he did. Floyd Mayweather, he fought his version of Teofimo Lopez when he was 36 years old, which was Canelo Alvarez. How many fighters do you know today in their mid-30s that's willing to move up to a higher weight class or fight the undefeated, the best champion at a higher weight class and actually beat him? How many fighters are doing that today? That's what Floyd Mayweather did with Canelo. After moving up 5 weight classes, he fought Canelo Alvarez at 152. The night of the fight, Canelo Alvarez was 15 to 20 pounds bigger than Floyd Mayweather. And you can't use the age excuse, because Teofimo, he just beat Vasyl Lomachenko at the same age that Canelo Alvarez was at, right? And on top of it, Teofimo, he had only been a pro for 4 years when he beat Loma. Canelo had been pro for 8 years and still couldn't get the job done against Floyd. As soon as Floyd Mayweather retired and Manny Pacquiao became the #1 pound-for-pound best fighter in the world, when Floyd Mayweather returned to the ring, the first thing Floyd Mayweather did was start to negotiate a fight with Manny Pacquiao in 2008. By Manny Pacquiao's trainer's own admission, Freddie Roach, he even admitted that it was his fighter, Manny Pacquiao, that turned down the fight in the first place, turned down the fight in 2008. So when it comes to Joe Tessitore, it's so funny because when Andre Ward was talking about fighters that are afraid to unify today, he was really talking about fighters like Gennady Golovkin and Canelo Alvarez. Those are really the type of fighters he was talking about. Because if you guys recall, back in the day before Gennady Golovkin abandoned fighting anyone with a post, he kept telling the boxing world his main goal was to be the undisputed unified middleweight champion. And all of a sudden, once competition got tougher at the middleweight division, that's when Golovkin, he decided to start vacating his belts. He started avoiding his mandatories like Jermall Charlo. He gets beat by Canelo, and then Canelo starts to do the exact same thing. Canelo vacates his belt to avoid Jermall Charlo as well. And Canelo was another one who said his main goal is to unify all the belts at the middleweight division. But then he says that he doesn't want to fight Demetrius Andrade because he doesn't like his style. And he gives up his belt to avoid Jermall Charlo. You know, if Joe Tessitore was smart, he could have at least tried to cover up the fact that he was a racist by at least throwing in other names when he added Floyd Mayweather's name. He could have said, you know, it's because of people like Floyd Mayweather, Golovkin, and Canelo, but he's not going to do that because those fighters, they have their hope insurance. We know what time it is. But ironically enough, after Joe Tessitore says this, Teofimo, he does his post-fight interview. And he makes an excellent point when it comes to the whole Mayweather situation. Now listen to what Teofimo said about Floyd Mayweather.
everyone wants to be like Mayweather. In order to be like Mayweather, you got to be like Pretty Boy first. You got to fight those guys that they don't think that you'll win. You got to fight the likes of those guys that are undefeated and is a good fight in order to make those type of millions that people want to make.
It would have been really nice if somebody would have said that to Joe Tessitore during that broadcast. But I'm happy that Teofimo, he came out and he spoke the truth on the matter. I mean, whenever someone on the Hope list is fighting, you just see so many double standards. For example, look at the way Lomachenko fought against Teo. I mean, the whole fight, even when he got a little bit more aggressive because he knew he was losing. If you look at the way he fought in this fight, and you look at the way Floyd Mayweather fought in the Manny Pacquiao fight, how can you not call Lomachenko boring, but then call Floyd Mayweather boring? How can you call Floyd Mayweather a runner, but never call Lomachenko a runner? We know what time it is. What that implies is they really want to call him something else, but they're not going to call him that because they don't want to expose themselves for who they really are. So they use these code words like runner, he's boring, etc., etc. Lomachenko didn't throw one single power punch in the first round against Teo. Go back and watch the first round. Watch Floyd Mayweather versus Manny Pacquiao. And watch the stark contrast. But not just the first round, because we know Lomachenko, he starts slow. Watch the whole fight. And look at how Floyd is fighting Manny Pacquiao. Even when Floyd Mayweather was in there with much, much bigger, stronger fighters, like Canelo Alvarez. Watch how Floyd fought Canelo Alvarez. And watch how Loma fought Teo. Matter of fact, that's a better example right there. Because I always tell you guys that the whole Teo versus Loma situation is very analogous to the Floyd Mayweather versus Canelo situation, because it was the experienced pound for pound champion against the young, inexperienced champion, right? And we seen how Floyd fought Canelo versus the way Loma fought Teofimo Lopez. And yet nobody is calling this man Loma a runner. No one is saying he's boring. But you're gonna say this about Floyd? That's all I got, man. I'm gonna go ahead and wrap this video up. But Andre, it's time for you to expose this man, Joe. It's time for you to expose him. Once again, we're not asking you to do anything unprofessional and lose your job. All you have to do is do the same thing you've been doing, is educate people on the microphone. And I know a lot of people, they were surprised when they looked at Andre Ward's scorecards that he had to fight a draw and he had gave Teofimo the second round. But let me just tell you this, guys. Now, if Andre Ward would have had, Lomachenko winning the fight 8 rounds to 4 or something like that, then I would be like, what the hell was Andre Ward doing? Now me, I didn't have the fight a draw. I clearly had Teo winning the fight. I mean, I had the fight. I got to go back and watch it a third time, because one thing I will say about Andre Ward's scorecard, what you guys have to realize is when you watch the fight the first time, it does look like some of those rounds are closer. But when you watch the fight a second time, what you'll notice is a lot of the rounds that you thought were close and Loma could have won, you'll realize that those rounds were clearly Teo's rounds. But the reason why you probably thought at first that maybe round 7 is a good round 7 and round 2, when you first watched the fight, just because Loma is doing better than he did in the previous rounds, you can automatically assume, oh, he must have got that round. Just because he did better than he did previously doesn't mean he did better than Teo in that round. And that was the case in a lot of those rounds. Once again, when I first watched the fight, I thought that Loma had won round 7. When I went back and watched the fight, I realized Teo clearly won that round. He clearly won the round. That, to me, you could give Loma rounds 8 to round 11. But out of those 4 rounds, the only round that I believe Loma clearly won was round 8. The other rounds could go either way, even though, I would say I would lean more towards Loma in the majority of those 4 rounds. But my point is, Loma didn't win too many decisive rounds in this fight. So I'm not gonna really give Andre Ward a hard time on the fact that he had the fight a draw. But I think what's more important than that is getting Andre Ward to check Joe Tessitore. That's all I got for now, guys. I'm on to the next one.
What's going on, guys? You know, I've always wanted to find a second source of income. And I've always wanted to learn about stocks and trades because I've heard so much good stuff about it. So I finally found a way to do it. And now I'm learning from 6, 7, 8-figure traders. So not only am I learning from them, but the most important thing is I get to copy their trade. So I get to earn while I learn. Now, if you want the full details, click on the link below so you can learn while you copy and paste their trades. And just understand this, guys, just by watching the video, you're doing a great job of supporting my channel, and I appreciate it. And the craziest thing about doing this trading is you can do it anywhere. All you need is an internet connection, and you can do it just with your phone. So if you want to learn how to make a second income alongside me without having to pitch, sell, or recruit, go ahead and click on the link below, and I'll see you inside.
Fellas, I've got some great news for you. If you've lost your hair or have a receding hairline, the time has come when you can finally get your hairline back through a process called scalp micropigmentation. So here's how it works. It's a hair tattoo that replicates the look of your hair follicles when you have fully shaved it down. Basically, you will end up with a haircut shape up or an edge up. What they do is they tattoo small dots that look like hair follicles in the areas where you have lost your hair and then blend it with your existing hair. You can even choose what type of hairline you want, hard shape up or soft and natural finish. And to maintain it, all you gotta do is shave your hair every few days, which is something you already were probably doing anyway. So if you wanna get this hookup for my brothers out there in the UK and Europe, make sure you check out the Scalp This on Instagram. And for my brothers out there in the States, make sure you go ahead and contact my man Scalp Carolinas on Instagram. And when you go on their pages, you can see for yourself what these guys look like before. I mean, these guys are literally hair magicians. I've never seen anything like this before, but all I can tell you guys is this a serious game changer for us men. So make sure you get in contact with Scalp This and Scalp Carolinas on Instagram. You know, I always say on this channel, pay-per-view fights should actually be free. And now the day has come where I'm about to hook you up with an app where you can watch all your pay-per-view events, boxing, UFC, etc. for free. I want to introduce Block TV, the best internet streaming television app out there. They provide over 3,600 channels, including HBO, Cinemax, Showtime, and Stars. They have a massive video on demand library with over 40,000 of the new release movies and the latest TV series. And it also includes DVR. So you're getting all of this for $34.99 a month. And once again, that includes free pay-per-view. So this one right here is a no-brainer, guys, because back in Las Vegas, I was paying damn near $200 a month for my cable. Those days are long gone now. So to get the app, make sure you guys go over to getblocktv.com and put in my promo code and get 30% off your first month. You also get a free month for every friend you refer. The promo code is DBNation.